Okay, I have that it's 4 o'clock, so we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Safety and Security Meeting for the Brazos Point Independent School District, and it's being held today, January 23rd, 2023. The meeting began at approximately 4:01 p.m. We're meeting virtually using the Google Hangouts, and I call this meeting to order. I will start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we'll go into the Texas pledge. The pledge to the Texas flag. I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, and one and indivisible. If you're just now joining, if you could please go into either the Google chat and there's a link to the sign-in sheet, or go into the calendar invite. There's a link to the sign-in sheet. And if you could please just put an XX to your name, letting us know that you are attending this meeting. Again, this is the second of 3 meetings that is required by law under the Texas School Safety Center and TEA requirements. And we're going to cover a lot of information. I pre-sent this information to you via the calendar invite, so you had an opportunity to review it. If you have questions, feel free to stop me to ask those questions, or you can put them in the Google chat so we make sure that we go back and get you the answers that you need. So with that being said, are there any questions or comments from the floor before we begin?
Mr. Morrow?
Yes, sir.
Mr. White, I just want to make sure you are recording.
Yes, sir. I've got a recording going. I forgot to make that notification. Yes, I am audio recording this event to be in compliance with TEA and Texas Schools requirements, and it will be posted onto our website at the conclusion of this meeting to include the minutes of the meeting. Again, if you have questions, you can either ask them during the presentation, or you can put them in the chat, so we make sure that Mr. Whitehead and Chief Wade are going to kind of keep me on track to make sure we get all your questions answered. So any other questions before we begin? Because we've got a lot of information to go through. I've kind of put up there for you, I sent you an agenda that kind of outlines everything that we're going to talk about this evening. I just want to make sure that I try and do so as succinctly as possible to deliver as much information to you as possible. During our last meeting, we talked about that the district was going to hold a regional mass casualty exercise, which we did. We probably had close to 100 people that showed up from around the region to help us cut up, what it would look like if we had a mass casualty event. Most all local law enforcement, fire, EMS was represented. All the local hospitals in this region were represented. Memorial Hermann out of Houston was represented. Life Flight was represented. PHI, which is another life flight system here soon to relocate to Lake Jackson, was included. The Port of Freeport was there. Our industry partners were there. NGOs, non-government organizations like Red Cross and Salvation Army were represented. And we had, of course, all the alphabet soup, from the feds, state, and local were there to give their input. Out of that mass notification process, there came out 15 recommendations that came forward from the meeting, which we just received from the governor's office and the Department of Public Safety. We're reviewing those to look at what we need to tweak to bring those things into compliance, is based on the gathering that was done by all. And as we develop that information, hopefully by the time we get to the next meeting in May, I'll be able to give you an update on what the recommendations were and what we were able to put in place to rectify some of those recommendations. The next item up is after the aftermath of Uvalde, the district has undertaken the process of going back through and making sure that we engage with all of our teachers and all of our staff at all of our campuses on this premises called CRAZE. Which is called Avoid, Deny, Defend, and it basically gives a re-education to everybody in light of Uvalde, what the expectations are for their safety and what the district has in place to ensure that we have a safe and secure environment for the students and the staff here. To date, we have completed most of that retraining with all the campuses. We still have 3 that we still need to schedule. We do this at their staff meeting with all hands on deck. The next thing that we, as the result of reevaluating, we needed to make sure that everybody was on the same page with our reunification processes. So we have gone back through and began to retrain every campus and the campus leadership team and their crisis team on the protocols and things they should have in place for a plan for reunification in one of two events. One, if they're reunifying from their facility, which is being supported by them and then supported by central office. And then two, if it's a large enough event where we have to relocate to the Lake Jackson Civic Center, thanks to Mr. Brian Sidebottom spearheading that for us, to get that facility, we retrained them on what it looks like when they do it and what it looks like when we do it. So, and that training is ongoing. We still have 2 campuses left to get done, and once that is complete, we would have retrained everybody on avoid, deny, defend, and what to do when the reunification process comes up. Next point up is SHIELD training for police. Again, as a result of the Uvalde, there's been a money led by the Governor Abbott's office to ensure that all law enforcement officers in the school district have shields, ballistic shields that could withstand high-powered rifle fire for law enforcement agencies. Chief Wade Nichols, working with the governor's office and the business office from our industry, was able to purchase shields. I think 3 initially that are already been purchased. He's also purchased ballistic helmets for every law enforcement officer, and he's purchased ballistic vests for all law enforcement officers that are currently working for the Bradsport Independent School District. And as a result of the grant that Governor Abbott is letting, he is in the process of purchasing 20 additional shields, so every officer will have his or her own personal ballistic shield, to include helmets and vests to be able to engage a shooter individually if that happens on our watch, which we pray it does not. Next item up is Stop the Bleed training. The district has completed in compliance with House Bill 496. We have trained all the staff, being all the teachers, custodial workers, cafeteria workers, and maintenance and operations folks, on how to use the Stop the Bleed kits that we have strategically located across their campuses. The only individuals that still need to be trained are the new teachers or new personnel that have come on after the training was completed at the beginning of the year. And as the campus leadership lets me know who needs that training, we're accomplishing that. But I'm happy to report that overall the district is in compliance with House Bill 496. Again, as the result of the Uvalde shooting, Chief Wade Nichols and his staff did additional breaching training to ensure that his staff was ready to engage if need be, to be able to get behind any locked door if need be. And as a result of that, he has also identified a unique system called, it just left what's the name of it, lady? It just left my brain real quick.
Aardvark.
Aardvark. So
Tactical breaching.
Yes, a tactical breaching tool called an aardvark, which I think we kind of showed before. But I think at the end, if you want to look it up, it's called aardvark, and it's a unique Wade, through Mr. Massey's blessings in the business offices and process, has purchased 2 of them, and we're just waiting delivery, which should be here, I believe, by the end of this month. Technical rec Wade, I think by the end of the month, we're hearing.
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. All right, next item up. I know we talked about this before, that we were in the process. We're working with technology in the business office to stand up what's called a new command and control center. That center is complete. There's still some logistical things, training-wise, it needs to accomplish, but the district now has a state-of-the-art command and control center that if we have an event, Mr. Massey and his leadership team will be able to go into that room, and they would be able to manage that event from that state-of-the-art command center across the district. And that gives them the vital information and things that they need to accomplish technologically wise to make sure they can be communicating and manage that event from here and not have to actually be in the scene. Next item up is the Texas School Safety Center. The Texas School Safety Center contacted Bradsport Independent School District after reviewing the emergency operations plans that we had submitted for their review. And based on that information, they felt that ours was one of the better ones across the state. So they asked us to come in and do a podcast about emergency operation planning and what does it entail to pull that piece together when you've got 19 school campuses underlaid with the district's overall process. That podcast was just recently released, and it can be accessed from the either Texas School Safety Center's website, or you can access it from the BISD website, because I believe our communications department has posted that up. Next item up, the district is always trying to look at look at how we're conducting business to see if there were having any gaps or vulnerabilities that we need to be cognizant of. And as a result of that, we voluntarily committed and then submitted to the Transportation Safety Administration, which is TSA, the ones that usually do the airplane safety protocols. They have a transportation component, so they came out and they did a transportation audit of our transportation facility and how we move kids from point A to point B, and what processes and protocols do we have in place to facilitate that, and what emergency planning do we have in place to facilitate that. The preliminary review after the audit, they said, you guys are doing very well on your processes. We'll put the report together. There's some things that we did not meet or did not satisfy, but they were more on a transportation level for, like Greyhound buses or other, trains and planes. But he says, for what the district has to offer and what we put forth, they are we're very surprised that we had the degree of sophistication as we did as a school district, based on what they've seen from other school districts. And again, that's just, again, we're always trying to figure out if there's something that we're missing so we can cover all avenues on as far as safety, security, and emergency management when it comes to the protection of our staff and students. Next item up is the Texas School Safety Center intruder audit. They have, and again, that's the one that Governor Abbott said their goal is to inspect all schools by May of 2023 across the state of Texas. I was on a conference call with them Friday. They have backed off of that. They are anticipating, they said they're going to try and do 75% of all schools in the state of Texas by the end of this school year in May. And then the other 25% will be done before the Thanksgiving break into the 2023-2024 school year. So far, LLC's been audited, Bradford High School's been audited, Elizabeth Nay's been audited, Clute Intermediate, O.M. Roberts, and BSA. And what these individuals are trying to do is they're trying to see if they can get through your exterior doors if they're not locked. And then they want to check the locking mechanisms on every door within the facility once they get inside. And then if you have an interior door policy, which the district does not have a written door policy, we follow best practices, best protocols that all teachers' doors should be locked and closed on the interior side when students are present. As a result of the audit, Lighthouse Learning Center had no findings. Brazosport High School had 2 findings. They had one finding, an exterior door it was locked, but it did not properly latch and close all the way. So when the inspector pulled on it, it opened. And then the other issue was all staff, they have to keep what's called a weekly exterior door audit list, meaning every week somebody from that facility needs to go through and check every single exterior door, the lock, the closing arm, and the locking mechanisms to make sure that it is functioning properly. And they need to annotate that inspection date on the form. Unfortunately, Brazosport had conducted all the inspections, but they did not transfer it from their field notes onto the document that the inspector needed to see. So we got a finding on that. As a result of those findings, we had to do 2 things. We had to go back through and we had to retrain every single staff member and substitute on the process of checking exterior doors. And then we had to also go back and retrain all the staff members and substitutes at that campus on the importance of completing the exterior door check weekly log and making sure that key personnel on the campus had access to it and knew where to find it if it was in the written form. So moving on from that, Clute Intermediate had no findings, Elizabeth Nay had no findings, O.M. Roberts had no findings, and Bradford Success Academy had no findings. Moving on to the next.
Hey, Ty,
Yes,
Ty,
sir.
if you don't mind, I just want to jump in there, and I know some of these campus staff and principals are on from those campuses that had no findings, and I just want to thank them publicly here and congratulate them on that, because the that's big stuff there, and they really take that serious, and all the staff on those campuses really take that seriously. So we really appreciate the seriousness that you take that. The auditors were here at NAE on the very last day of the semester. Before holiday break. I mean, you can imagine at a campus that has 200 3- and 4-year-olds what the last day of semester looks like. And it was a half day, all right? That's when they showed up to audit, and they passed with flying colors. Clued Intermediate, I think, was the next to the last day.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. I mean, if we're open for school, they're going to come check. And so, again, just thank you to these campuses that passed. And we really appreciate your efforts.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Massey. I appreciate that. And then one of the byproducts of the next item is the emergency response plans refresh. If you remember before, we talked about Chief Wade and Mr. Whitehead and Dr. Pelton previously had created a book that basically gave a digital and a visual representation of all our campuses and where everything would go. If we had an active shooter, where life flight would go, where fire would go, where law enforcement would go, where EMS would go, where casualty collection points for people that needed treatment or before transporting to the hospital would be set up. One of the aftermaths out of the mass casualty training was that we needed to refresh that and update it. So we met from October 25th to just before the Thanksgiving break with the local fire and EMS chiefs and EMS directors, and we refreshed that plan, and we're working with our construction crew, Taylor Seguin. He is putting those maps back together, and then once all that information is refreshed and re-identified, we will then go back and retrain all our partners on what the expectation is if we have a mass casualty event where they should respond. Next item, random safety audits in campuses. Myself, Mr. Whitehead, and Chief Wade Nichols have a random weekly system set up where we just randomly go around and check the schools to make sure that we're in compliance with Texas School Safety Center and TEA's rules on all exterior doors being locked. So we do that, and if things are identified, we communicate that to the campus leadership, make sure the proper work orders are put in, and ensure that those facilities or locks are fixed immediately. And again, the campus do a great job on that, and it's just our way of just spot checking. Again, I've always been trained, inspect what you expect, and then so that's a way of just making sure that everybody's on top of their game. Same thing with the daily interior door audits. There is no written policy for the district to have all interior doors locked and closed, but the district's expectation is we follow best practices. So we randomly also, as we're going around the campuses, check that and then communicate our findings to the campus leadership. We still participate in the monthly fire drills that are mandated by the state, and we're in compliance with that, and they are up to date. One of the other things, next point that I wanted to bring up is, again, we're always looking to find where we have vulnerabilities and gaps, because communication is always the major issue when we have a major emergency event. So there's a group called Texas Life Safety Audit. They are a independent private company that does mapping, frequency mapping for radios, penetration, interior and exterior facilities. I'm in negotiation with them. They do this free of charge. They're going to come out and give us walk every one of our campuses and give us a detailed map of where we have frequency issues that prevent constant communication between police, fire, EMS, leaving our buildings or getting into it. Next point up, again on House Bill 496, one of the things that they required was that on the Stop the Bleed training, that all students in grades area from 7th grade to the grade of 12th grade need to be taught how to do Stop the Bleeding. That's one of the challenges we're still trying to work through to get through with the myriad of things that we've been having to be able to do this year. So I have reached out to the campus principals to ensure that we get on their schedule so we can get that accomplished. Hopefully the goal is to have that accomplished by the end of the school year. And it will be done in a 2-module setting, meaning the first module the students can do it online, where they can take the course based on the campus leadership's discretion. And then the second module will be actual hands-on training where myself, Chief Wade Nichols and his staff, or the nurses at the secondary campuses would help facilitate the actual skills base where we actually got to walk the students through the application of what they learned online and make sure that it's stuck. Next point up is again, remember we told you that we had to submit our emergency operations plans to the Texas School Safety Center for review and audit, and they initially came and told us we're the best, and that's why we did the podcast, but now they have auditors that they have found, and they found 3 of our EOP annexes, the base plan, active threat annex, and active shooter annex needed more tweaking. They needed some more verbiage that was specific to things they were looking to hear. So we're in the process of updating and then resubmitting those plans back to the Texas School Safety Center for their review. And then I've sent you ahead of time because we need as one of the requirements is we have to share those plans with our Safety and Security Committee. So I have submitted those plans to you in the calendar invite for your review. I know it's a lot of information for you to review, but they're there. I'm not going to go through them in the interest of time here, the document by document, because some of them are 18 or 20 pages long. I just want to let you know that they are there, and if you have questions or issues or things you need clarification on, if you can just reach out to me or Chief Wade or Mr. Whitehead, and we should be able to answer those for you. So this is the first plan that was sent to you. This is the second plan that was sent to you, and these are all updated on 12/12 of 2022 and submitted on those dates. So, and then this is the third appendix that was completed. If you have questions about that, we can answer them at a later time. Moving to the next point, you know that there's a requirement that Texas School Safety Center requires that every facility within a district be audited for safety and security protocols every 3 years. This is the end of the 3-year cycle, which concludes at the end of May this school year. So far, we have done all, but I believe it's 4, and the 4 that have not been done. But when these 4 are complete, the last one, which is Lanier Middle School, which is on 4/21 of 2023, we would have inspected and audited every one of our facilities and requirement with Texas School Safety Center, and most of the findings that we're finding where there's irregularities are more along the lines of maintenance and operation or technological issues that need to be updated or refreshed. And we have a process and a plan and protocol in place to, as funding is available, we will continue to identify those and try and correct things that are things that are nice to have but not mandatory and needed to have. The mandatory stuff that's life safety is being taken care of immediately. So, and then one of the final pieces I wanted to put out there is and again, always looking for new things. There are always grants that are coming out, so these are just to give you some of the indication of some of the grants that the team here from Brazosport Independent School District have looked at or are reviewing or going after. Currently, the National Glazing Services Window Audit, which is, again, one of the not required rules yet, but is a proposed rule for TEA for maybe changing, is to have all exterior windows on the first floor adjacent to interior doors be hardened with some type of bullet-resistant film. Now, it's not a requirement, but we have already gotten with NGS Glass. They have already come out. They have already walked every one of our campuses, and they're putting together the proposal of what the numbers would look like and how much it would cost if that becomes a mandatory rule, which it is not at this point. But we're ahead of the game, so we're getting that knocked out, so we got the information if it should come up. The district put in for a Stop the School Violence grant from under the COPS program, and as a result of that, the grant total amount that you could have gotten was $500,000. The district was awarded $463,320, and that is because that's what we asked for. We asked for $463,320 worth of stuff, and they gave it to us. Under the Texas SPAT grant, which is Silent Panic Alert Technology, which is put out by Governor Abbott shortly after Uvalde, they wanted to make sure there was some kind of mass notification system in place. The district already has the Quick Alert app in place, So what we chose to do with this $38,000 at the elementary schools, we're going to use that to put in strategic locations in common areas additional systems that will give an audible and a visual sign to the staff there that something is going on, like a lockdown, and they need to immediately secure behind the locked door in those facilities. Then the governor has also put out a $553,242 what's called a formula grant, which is ongoing, and to apply for that grant, it could fall under the following rules. It can be for access control, it can be for CCT surveillance camera enhancements, it can be for lighting on your facilities, it can be for fencing on your facilities, or it can be for silent panic alert technology. BISD is fortunate enough that we got the SVVP grant for $463,000. That's going to cover most of the things that we need for our lighting, fencing, access control, lighting, and CCT. So the goal is, working with Mr. Whitehead in the business office, we're looking at deploying another silent panic alert technology called Centegix, which is basically, it's a badge-worn button that, if activated, it gives the ability for the campus, for everyday occurrences, kid fall down, having a medical issue, they push it 3 times, it notifies the campus administration, it's geofenced to the room they're at and the campus they're at, so the administrators can go give them assistance that they need. If they push that button more than 3 times, and they push it 8 times, it sends the system into the campus into lockdown, and then it will access the same quick alert functionalities that we talked about before. And then the final piece is, we just found out about 2 weeks ago that TxDOT has a $250 million grant that they let for sidewalks, pedestrian road markings, lighting, school zones, and signage. And for the cities of Freeport, Clute, Richwood, Jones Creek, and Surfside, if you apply for the grant, it's 100% match. The district doesn't have to put any money. I have contacted all the cities that get 100% match, and I am working with their administration for them to include our needs on the road projects that they are putting in for. So Freeport is putting in these things that we're talking about on our behalf on their grant to TxDOT, and then Clute is doing the same thing. For reasons outside of BISD's control, Jones Creek is having issues with the width of the roadway and some of the drainage issues, and pedestrian, and the citizens there not wanting to give up any of their easements. And not knowing where the school may or may not go down there, they're not going to pursue this grant this go around. And Richwood has the same issue. Some of the drainage requirements that they won't entertain or move into bar ditches to put sidewalks in. So if you got bar ditches, you have to come up it's either a retention pond or a detention pond, one of them things, and it's cost prohibitive. So they said they're not putting in for the grant either. So that'll take us into our next slide, which is an update on Zero Eyes update. We talked about this before. David Mendoza and Mr. Monty Berger are working diligently with Zero Eyes. We're just about where we need to be for that thing to roll out, to be finalized and rolled out. The initial read is going to put 152 Zero Eyes artificial intelligent software on 152 of our exterior cameras. Myself, David, Anthony Lusk, and Zero Eyes have sat down and looked at the best angles to give us the best information possible. So that's in place. They're upgrading and doing everything they need to do on Zero Eyes end, and hopefully that system should be operational very, very soon. And the other goal is from the SVVP grant. The goal is, once they get the exterior campuses done, we built in money in that SVVP grant, which is $463, so we can now move some of that artificial intelligence cameras inside to the interior of our campuses and to the common areas where students or somebody may stage up, begin an active assault. And again, I embedded in the calendar invite, what Zero Eyes is, if somebody need a refresh on what we're talking about. And I don't want to belabor that by going through that here. And then Quick Alert Massive Notification System, again, that is up and rolling. It's the app is live in BISD, has been given to staff who chose to download it on their personal phones, which we can't dictate, but we strongly recommend it. And Quick Alert is integrating their solutions with BISD's technology to ensure they can take over the BISD phones, which is our Cisco over the IP phones, our paging systems, our messaging boards, and other mass notifications. And we're going to use, as I said a little bit earlier, the TEA SPAT grant for $38,000 to put some notification message boards and monitors in strategic locations within the elementary schools to give them a little bit more notification capabilities, because sometimes those little ones scream and yell a lot louder than the older kids. So we want to make sure that teachers have that in their wheelhouse. And again, we put a link to Quick Alert Mass Notification if you want to update what that looks like and how the functionality of it. And I won't go through that in the interest of time for here unless somebody actually really wants to see it. And then this is the next project that we're working on. Centegix will be in the house tomorrow. We'll be meeting with key leadership to go over their plan and talk about their product. Myself, Mr. Whitehead, and Mr. David Mendoza went out to a local jurisdiction that was thinking about this to see what they had to offer. And I know Mr. Massey and others have contacted other jurisdictions that have already had it, and I think it's a good system, and it gives an extra layer of protection and a sense of safety to the staff that have it, because now they've got something around their neck. They can push a button at any time and they can get the immediate assistance that they need. So, any questions on that? I know I'm going pretty fast, but we got a lot of information to go, and I want to make sure we leave a little bit of time on the backside for any questions that may come up. And then again, I've embedded Centegix Mass Notification System, a quick video and a quick bio on the company, so if you wanted to see what that information was about. And hearing none. And then that's all I got. I just want to thank you all for your support and answer any questions that you may have regarding the issues at hand. Yes, Mr. Whitehead. Is any questions in the chat?
I'm not seeing any in the chat, Ty.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or anything that needs to be clarified on our end? Okay, I am hearing none, and I'm taking silence as golden. So with that, I would say again on behalf of Mr. Massey and his leadership team, we want to thank you for everything that you do to be engaged with the safety and security of our staff and students here at Brazos-Point Independent School District. And again, at any point that you have issues or things that you see or things you want us to look at, if you can communicate that with us, and we will take a look to see what we can do to see how it fits into the plans and the protocols we have in place. And our goal is we'll continue to update you as things come abreast. And our next meeting is set for May 15th, 2023 at 4 p.m. And again, that will be virtually unless otherwise dictated. Alrighty. I'm seeing none. Going once, going twice. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Great job, Ty.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ty.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ty. Good job, man.
Thank you, boss. Checking out.